Welcome into the Wiltfong Whip Around with Steve Wiltfong. Today's Thursday, September 12th, and I'm your host, Josh Newberg. We got the best insider in the country, Steve Wiltfong. He's going to be on the show. So for the next 20 to 30 minutes, just kick back, relax, and take in all the info. We're going to hit on some of the biggest developments heading into the weekend. But first, you guys do me a favor and hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel, whether it's the Wiltfong Whip Around, the Inside Scoop, the 5-Star Flex. You got it all right here on the On3 Recruits channel. Also, you've been thinking about signing up for On3. Well, let's get you on board for just $1. That's right. Right now, I can get you to On3 for just $1. Use promo code FONG1 and you can sign up for On3 for just $1. All right, let's get into it and bring in Steve. Steve, are you on an official visit?
I am on the plains today, Josh, checking out the Auburn Tigers, their pristine, brand new facilities. There's a lot of excitement around this program. Easy to see why so many of the nation's top prospects have already given a verbal commitment to Coach Freeze and his staff or are strongly thinking about doing so as their process continues.
Let's talk some Auburn recruiting. They got New Mexico this weekend, but there's a couple developments that we need to cover right here on the Wiltfong Whip Around. Duce Knight, Auburn, you got Notre Dame. You had a bit of a report earlier this week. We haven't talked about it yet on the Wiltfong Whip Around. So, Steve, what are you hearing on Notre Dame quarterback commit Duce Knight?
Well, communication has remained strong between Duce Knight and Notre Dame, longtime Irish commit that has a great relationship with Marcus Freeman, Gino Godolgi, and that coaching staff. And Notre Dame has been trying to get him back up to South Bend for the Louisville game. I talked with Duce Knight's dad earlier this week, asked if they were going to the Louisville game. He said, undecided yet. So as they try and get that visit locked in, Jeff Lee from our Auburn site reported that he's expecting Duce Knight on an official visit that an official visit is scheduled for Auburn that same weekend. And if you're asking me where I think Duce Knight will end up that weekend right now, I would put the odds on Auburn. And I still like where the Tigers stand with one of the most coveted quarterbacks in the country and certainly the top signal caller on Auburn's board right now.
All right. Now, also some news this week on the next potential commitment for Auburn. We're talking Elijah Melendez. We had him on the Inside Scoop about 2 Sundays ago. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. But Elijah Melendez trending heavily to the Tigers. When do you think this recruitment's going to come to an end?
Well, I think he's very close to making his college decision. He's expected back at Auburn this weekend. He was at the season opener even prior to his visit to Auburn. As soon as he decommitted from Miami, he was a heavy trend to Auburn. And I think that he is the guy that I have marked to be the next prospect in the fold for Hugh Freeze and company as they attack the nation's #1 class.
All right, now let's talk about what a finish could look like for Auburn. Got some names here for you. We got Andrew Babalola, Elijah Melendez, we just talked about, Usman Chroma, Naeem Offer, Duce Knight, and Tyler Lockhart. These are kind of the main targets in play. How do you feel about some of these names and where Auburn stands?
Well, I still think that they're in the thick of it for Andrew Babalola. Maybe there's times where Stanford looked like the favorite. I thought they were the heavy favorite going into the official visits. Michigan's had some momentum in this recruitment, but I think Auburn's been right there. No relationship better than the one he has with this coaching staff at Auburn. Guys like Jake Thornton, Aaron Petard, he talks to regularly. And you also have Oklahoma in the mix with that one as well. Auburn plays Oklahoma in a few weeks, and we'll see if Andrew Babalola gets out on the road, takes some visits. I know Oklahoma's been trying to get him to campus for a game. He's been to Norman before for college football games. He's never been on the plains for a game, so maybe he wants to check out Auburn one time for a game before making a final decision. Certainly you still have Michigan and Stanford battling for him as well, but that one's very real for Auburn. Usman Chroma, on 300 running back. Auburn is the on 3 RPM favorite right now. Working with Chad Simmons, my colleague, on that one. Chroma was back at Georgia last weekend. There's some Georgia momentum for Chroma, and we've always said if Georgia's hitting the gas there, they could be tough to beat for the in-state back. But Auburn's going to battle for Chroma, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was back at Auburn this weekend as well. He was at Auburn season opener Auburn trying to get him back to campus this weekend. So if he makes it back to Auburn this weekend, it's certainly game on. If he doesn't, I think you could see that on 3 RPM start to really slide towards Georgia. Still like Auburn for Lockhart. And then obviously you got Naeem Offord out there, which I think is a real battle. They're in it. He's committed to Ohio State. I could see him sticking with the Buckeyes. Oregon, he's going to go out to Oregon again for the Oregon-Ohio State game. Ohio State, I think he'll be at the Iowa game, maybe Nebraska. And then he's already been to one Auburn game. I think you'll see him back on the Plains at some point again. But that's not that recruitment's not a foregone conclusion in any direction right now. Ohio State battling to keep them. We've seen them be able to hang on to elite guys like Jeremiah Smith and Edric Houston, even where at various points, maybe even close to the finish line, it looked like they were maybe going to miss out. So I wouldn't count out on the Buckeyes led by Tim Walton hanging on to them. But Auburn and Oregon are definitely in the thick of that one as well.
All right, so we got New Mexico at home for Auburn this weekend. Likely a win in front of some big-time recruits. But after dropping that game to Cal, it got me wondering, year two, do results on the field matter when it comes to recruiting? Or do you think – because you can also sell hope and excitement in recruiting. At least you can in years 1 and 2. So are we still in this honeymoon phase where recruits are buying the hope and really the wins and losses on the field don't matter too much?
Well, I think that you want to be exciting on the field, which Auburn in the Iron Bowl last year, even though they didn't win, very exciting, showed they were right there with one of the best teams in the country. Coach Freeze always has his team up for big games. So I think if you're competitive in this SEC schedule, this SEC slate, you're recruiting at a high level. If your young players are excited about the culture and the direction of the program, those are the guys that your recruits are generally going to spend a lot of time with. So when Duce Knight comes to campus, he's around Cam Coleman and those young receivers. He's around this recruiting class that has a chance to finish number 1. All the young people around this program are excited. The culture is in a really good place right now. This is a coaching staff that's very experienced, that's got great resumes. So I think that right now Auburn is still very much in the honeymoon phase of the Hugh Freeze era, as long as they continue to play exciting football throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, but I don't think the game against Cal was exciting football. I mean, I know you bring up last season against Alabama, like you said, one of the best teams in the country, but what they put on tape or even in person against Cal, I mean, I don't think that's an exciting loss. You can't do that all season.
Well, recruits on campus are able to say, hey, they have a huge need for me right away, and Auburn is selling an opportunity to come in and play right away. And it sucked to lose to Cal. 4 turnovers is why they lost that ball game, not because Cal was the better team. They were the better team on that day. And I think that Auburn has the talent to bounce back and play some exciting football against some SEC opponents moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Auburn here, they're putting together something special. I just think that they do. This isn't year 1. This is year 2. But like you said, it's not year 3 and it's not year 4. So we are still a bit in that honeymoon phase where hope and excitement can be sold. So props to Auburn. All right, Auburn fans.
Get that quarterback in the fold. It really, really gets the juices going.
And what's the timetable on that? When can we get that quarterback in the fold for Auburn?
I do think that Duce Knight is working towards a final decision. I still am riding with Auburn, my on 3 RPM pick there. Certainly Notre Dame. He told Notre Dame before the season he was going to take it into the fall, take his time, see how things play out. So that timeline has remained on track. Does he visit Auburn at the end of the month? If he does that, I still love my Auburn pick. If he ends up at Notre Dame for the Louisville game, all of a sudden, I think we'll start changing our tune on where things stand with Duce Knight. But everything I'm still hearing, Auburn's still in a really good position with him. He's just working through his process. You only go through it once. And you also got to remember, like Duce Knight, he also, as a junior in high school, went to a high school and left there. It wasn't the situation he thought it was going to be. So I think he just wants to be really sure in the end what he's doing with this college decision based on the experiences he's already had as a high school player.
All right, Auburn fans, a very special Wiltfong Whip Around live from the Plains. Talk to us, comment section below. How are we feeling about Duce Knight? How are we feeling about this season? How are we feeling about this recruiting class? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, let's talk some Longhorn recruiting because Texas has a 5-star on campus this weekend. Also, a couple other intriguing names. We're going to break it all down in this video. Let's start with Michael Terry III. Steve, this weekend, he is back in Austin. Last weekend, he was in Nebraska. How important is it to get him back to campus this weekend for the Longhorns?
Well, coming off such a great atmosphere at Nebraska, such a powerful win for the Huskers in that program as they try and turn around a team that's had 7 straight losing seasons. Michael Terry couldn't have picked a better atmosphere to be in. They had him down in the front row of Memorial Stadium around a lot of Nebraska's commits. He was in the locker room after the game. He believes that Nebraska is going to turn this thing around. This coaching staff is the right staff for them in Lincoln. Getting back to Texas, Texas is the leader going into these fall visits. That's where my on-3 RPM is. I still have not gotten any intel to make me think that pick is in the wrong place. He's coming back for this game. The Texas-Georgia game is on the radar. It has been on the radar for a while. He's been there several times, loves the offense, loves the culture, loves where this program is at currently, and thinks he can be a big-time player doing multiple things in Steve Sarkisian's offense.
All right. Also, flip target on campus. I talked to Justin Wells about this week on some of our videos. Joseph Bacho. This is a prospect that is committed to the Florida Gators, but hasn't really played a whole lot of football. He's new to the game, and he's new to the recruiting scene. And one of the teams that's all over him right now is the Texas Longhorns. Georgia also involved, but Joseph Bacho in Austin this weekend. How serious of a flip target is he, or is Texas just kind of kicking the tires here?
Well, I think obviously both these parties are getting to know each other better, but I think it's just a testament to the level that Texas wants to recruit at, recruit another top 5 class, recruit championship caliber prospects with high upside around the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. This is one of the better defensive line classes in the country already, and we still haven't even gotten to Javian Hilson from Cocoa, the number 2 edge in the on-3 industry rankings, who's trending towards Texas on the on-3 RPM right now. But Texas, they're not afraid to go in any part of the country and battle for a blue chipper, and that's the case here.
Yeah, you can see a lot of teams starting to get into this recruitment. It's always fun to see these senior year recruitments that blow up. I mean, and Joseph Bacho, he's a hard one to miss. He's 6'7", almost 300 pounds. He plays a premium position on that D-line, so his recruitment's going to be a fun one to follow the next couple months. Circle back to Michael Terry. Do you think that he's going to make a decision soon? We had Nebraska last week, and we have Texas this week, and it seems like these are the top 2 teams on his list. So if he knocked out 2 visits in 2 weeks, maybe could we be ready for a decision?
Well, there's not much more he needs to see. He wanted to decide before his senior year, so obviously there was a little bit of doubt and some things he wanted to go see. Maybe he wants to go take in a game inside Autzen Stadium up in Oregon too. So we'll see if he gets the Ducks on the itinerary for a game visit. But I still like where Texas stands for him right now going into this visit. As far as a timeline, that's been fluid. But Texas, they're casting a big net right now, kind of going back to our last topic, Josh, because of the new 105 scholarship limit. And I think we're going to see some teams take some extra defensive linemen, some extra high upside front 7 players with traits to bolster the competition in those most important rooms. And so it'll be interesting to see what Texas's strategy is with the 105 number.
All right, now Duce Hicks, he's trending to Texas, 2026, the number 3 safety in the country. He's out of Carrollton, Georgia. We know how many prospects come out of that area. Would he be a huge pickup? What's the significance of Duce Hicks trending heavily to Texas this early in the cycle?
Well, it would be a big recruiting win in SEC country. Has one of the more flattering offer lists in the country. I talked to his head coach, Joey King, this morning over at Carrollton. Carrollton competing for a high school national championship this season. And Joey King said that Zalis has grown a lot since being with us. He's naturally aggressive player that can really run to the football, and you see that on film. He is covering a lot of turf, a lot of green to make plays, a hustle player for sure. Coach King talked about him doing a good job improving his cover skills, his cover ability, understanding coverages. Certainly he has the length and speed. Again, you see that on tape. then Coach King said, I think he can be a complete player with the ability to tackle, cover, and understand scheme. I just like the motor he plays with. Again, no play is over for him until he hears a whistle. He's a chase down guy, plays with a lot of range, and again, has those physical traits that you're looking for.
Yeah, and he's a borderline 5-star, ranked at number 33 overall early on in that 2026 cycle. Speaking of borderline 5-stars, Jaylen Hilson, he just decommitted from FSU last weekend. You immediately put in that prediction to Texas. What do you think is the timeline for this recruitment to end?
Well, Hayes Fawcett, our colleague, reported that he's got his eye on several schools right now. Sounds like he's going to take it into December based on that, but we'll see if he speeds up this timeline. I like where Texas stands for him right now. He's going to be inside the swamp checking out the Florida Gators this weekend. He's had some good experiences at Florida before in the past, including a game day visit. So we'll see if they can make a move against a SEC opponent in Texas A&M. But when he committed to Florida State, it came down to Texas and Florida State, and he raved about the Longhorns numerous times. And there were times where maybe they led there at the end, but just Florida State was able to pull it out for a minute, and he, quotes from him in the past, when people say everything is big in Texas, it's big, but he loved the coaching staff there. He talked about Coach PK, the defensive coordinator, said he's a good coach around, really enjoyed watching film with him, thinks it's a scheme that he can really flourish, and talked about it being between Texas and Florida State at that time. And obviously now I like where Texas stands as he reopened his process, and I think it's up to those other schools to make a move on Hookem.
Yep, I like where Texas stands as well for Jaylen Hilson. But Texas fans, talk to Steve and I. Where do you think Texas stands for Michael Terry, Joseph, and Bacho? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, let's head to Gainesville. We got some Gator recruiting we got to talk about because they have some important recruits on campus for a big SEC matchup as the Gators take on the Aggies in the Swamp. Recruits are going to be on hand for this one. Jaylen Hilson, he's fresh off that decommitment from FSU, and he's back at Florida. The Cocoa High School standout is looking at a bunch of schools, but Florida, would you say that's the one team in the state of Florida that has a shot to sign Hilson right now?
I think UCF is a program that I'm keeping an eye on in that recruitment. But Florida, Jaylen Hilson's recruitment is the same as all the others. They got to play well. They got to play consistent. They got to get some big wins. They got to get a win or two that people aren't expecting. And this is not one of those games. This is a winnable game for them. They have to win this one, get on a roll going into what is going to be a treacherous back half of the schedule. Then win some of those games that people aren't expecting. There's some excitement around the program with the way they've recruited. You have DJ Lagway, true freshman, bright future. He's a guy you can build around. Again, win some games that you're not expected to this year, and we can maybe see Florida circle back on some of these recruitments that they've lost and maybe get some momentum with a guy like Jaylen Hilson.
Yep, and he's not going to be the only one back on campus. Joshua Moore, the Gator commitment that is being pursued heavily by all the other in-state schools. Steve, there's a significant development. Well, I want to see if you think this is significant, but while you were in the air, I don't know if you saw this, but on his Instagram, Joshua Moore posted photos of FSU and Miami gloves. Not because he wants them, because he's trying to get rid of them. Yes, they are for sale. Joshua Moore selling his FSU and Miami gloves. Significant development for the Gator commitment?
Well, it goes in line with what his dad said coming out of that loss to Miami, that his son was still locked in with Florida. He even visited Miami on Labor Day, a couple days after Miami beat Florida in the Swamp. And his dad said that Joshua said he's still all Gator, from the academics that Florida presents, the opportunity there, playing with DJ Lagway. They think they got the quarterback. And then this family loves Billy Napier. They think he's a guy that can turn it around. They like his receiver track record and just his nature in general and the culture he's created. There are some other people, though, that think Miami's still way in this one. So we'll see what happens as this process continues. But the Moore camp saying all the right things. Back on campus this weekend, an opportunity to get some momentum going again in your season. And Florida's got an excellent recruiting class right now with Vernell Brown, Nashawn Montgomery, and Joshua Moore. These are guys that could really help DJ Lagway next year. Joshua Moore is an instant impact type prospect, in my opinion, along with Vernell Brown. So we'll see how Florida plays as their season continues, because Miami is not going away on both those pass catchers.
All right, now Jaylen Wiggins, when you talk about holding together this UF commit class, yes, Vernell Brown and Joshua Moore are important, but the trenches is where it's at. And Jaylen Wiggins, one of the top defensive linemen in the state of Florida, he's from Tallahassee. He's going to be back in Gainesville this weekend. What are you hearing on Jaylen Wiggins? His things kind of calmed down, or are more teams knocking at his door?
Yeah, I haven't heard much about him in Flip Watch. Obviously, he took some visits, went to Florida State. Stanford was a program that has lurked for Jaylen Wiggins. He's a Florida fit. Again, Florida's one of the top public school educations in the country. Loves that environment, loves this coaching staff, Coach Armstrong and the rest of that coaching staff. So, again, Florida, it's the same thing with every guy, Josh. They got to start playing well. It starts with Texas A&M. It's an SEC opponent at home, an opportunity to get a good win at a part of a schedule where it sets up for them to get on a little bit of run, get on a little bit of a run before the back half of the schedule gets real treacherous. Then they got to win a game or two that they're not expected to really show these recruits that, hey, Florida football is on the right trajectory.
Yeah. And I think this is one of those games. So, Steve, this is where we do it. What's your prediction? UF, Texas A&M in Gainesville. What do you think?
I think I'll give the Gators one more chance here. I think that they find a way to make enough plays against Texas A&M, and I think that they're able defensively maybe to do some things that Notre Dame did to frustrate Wigman, and I think that Florida gets it done and gets a big win here in September and create some momentum going into the middle portion of the schedule.
All right. Gator fans, talk to us. Who do you think's going to win this game? Is it the Gators? Is it the Aggies? Of course it's the Gators. I'm taking them at home too. I know they're getting a couple points, but I like the Gators in the swamp against a Texas A&M team that might be a little bit better towards the end of the year in Mike Elko's first year, but I think at home Gators defend their turf and they win. But you guys chime in. Let us know what you think about Gator recruiting. Comment section below. Let's head to Columbia, South Carolina. We're going to talk some Gamecock recruiting as LSU comes to town. Big SEC matchup, which means big-time recruits on the sidelines. Let's bring in Steve Wiltfong, talk a little South Carolina here on the eve of a big SEC matchup. Steve, I know there's some top targets of the Gamecocks in South Carolina this weekend. What are you hearing in terms of who's going to show up?
Well, they got a few prospects on campus that are flip candidates for them. Top 100 offensive lineman Damola Ajidahun, committed to Georgia Tech right now, is slated to be on campus. South Carolina offered him back in May. Georgia's also been keeping him warm. There was a time where I really liked the Bulldogs there, but South Carolina against LSU, a chance to make things interesting. Mel Skinner's an on 300 tight end that is committed to Cincinnati, but his recruitment's really coming down to South Carolina and Kentucky. My on-3 RPM is on the Wildcats for Skinner. He was in Lexington last weekend for his official visit where he saw South Carolina roll over Kentucky as the visitors, and now he's back in Columbia for a second straight home game because he was there for their opener. So we'll see where South Carolina stands after another potential big win against LSU.
Steve, a lot of these early season visits, we see a good group of 2026 prospects as well. This is kind of where the groundwork goes. When you hear a prospect name a leader late in the cycle, it's usually because he's already been on campus a couple times. So we're anticipating a good showing for 2026 class at this game. Who are some of the bigger names you're tracking?
Well, they have a commitment from the nation's number 2 linebacker, Rodney Colton. Rodney Colton was back at Georgia last weekend, so it's good to get him back to South Carolina, remind him why he's committed and in the fold. Now, this is a really good offensive line group that's going to be on campus. Akini Ogboko is one of the blue chippers, one of the top offensive line recruits in the Carolinas. Darius Gray from Virginia, the number 4 interior offensive lineman in the country. He was at South Carolina spring game. He's been to Columbia a couple times already. If they're not the leader, they're at or near the top of his list. This is a really good group of wide receivers, Josh. Tyron Evans is a young man whose name has really started to blow up. Donovan Murph and Jordan Gidron are 2 coveted receivers from the area that they have a good shot at. Brody Keefe is a playmaker. Some of the top running backs in the country in the 2026 class, Jalen McGill and Carson Baker, are slated to be on campus. And then a couple defensive linemen that South Carolina's in good position with, Trayshawn Ruffin, Duce Geralds. Those are two interior players that South Carolina, I think, is an early front runner for. So, but this is, talking to people around Columbia, they envision this being one of the bigger recruiting weekends in South Carolina in quite some time. So to have LSU there on campus, opportunity to get a good win against the Tigers and really set the tone in some of these recruitments moving forward.
Yeah, and that will be one of the games that we talk about on our Recruit Reaction show that airs every Saturday evening. Me, you, Hayes Fawcett, the whole gang will be there, but we will definitely be talking about some of the recruits at this South Carolina LSU game. All right, let's talk about Jerome Miles. The 4-star wide receiver out of the state of Utah is set to decide, Steve, in just a couple of days. Jerome Miles picking up a couple predictions for USC. Does it look like he is locked into the Trojans, or could Ohio State, Texas A&M, Georgia? Is there anybody else, Utah? Is there anybody else that could shock the world and land Jerome Miles when he announces?
I love where USC stands coming off the official visit this past weekend, the shutout victory over Utah State on the heels of beating LSU in Las Vegas. USC's got a lot of momentum as a program. They have a lot of momentum in the recruitment of Jerome Miles, Lincoln Riley's offense, Coach Simmons, the wideouts that those guys have coached, the way they scheme their playmakers open, seeing guys like Branch running around inside that offense, making a lot of plays, being dynamic. Jordan Miles at 6'3" with 10.3 speed in the 100-meter dash, 4.4 in the 40-yard dash. He is an explosive touchdown waiting to happen, tailor-made for this USC offense. I like where USC stands. I put in the on-3 RPM last Sunday coming out of his official visit. We talked about him maybe being the next 2025 commit for USC. Now his decision date's moved up. Everything is lining up for the Trojans here as they battle Texas A&M and Utah, with Ohio State and Georgia rounding out the top 5.
And those aren't your only picks, Steve. You made a couple for 2026. Tell us about those and take us out of here.
Well, Samuelo Utu is a lineman that I have logged an on-3 RPM in favor of USC coming out of his visit. USC also tracking for a top 10 class in 2026. Talking to sources around that recruitment, USC is considered the favorite for him. I have not yet logged the pick, but working with my colleague Chad Simmons, Deshaun Rideau is one of the most coveted running backs in the country. At one point, it looked like he was a heavy lean to UCLA, but him being back at USC over the weekend, the dialogue with the staff, seeing the trajectory of this program, I think USC is right in the middle of that recruitment as well.
All right, Steve, another action-packed episode of the Wiltfong Whip Around. Now, the Wiltfong Whip Around, we will be back on Monday, but Steve, I'll see you a little bit sooner.
Yeah, Saturday we have our third Recruit Reaction show. We appreciate all the viewers that have tuned in for the first 2 shows. They've been absolutely electric. We got some big games this weekend with Florida hosting top recruits, South Carolina getting a lot of offered prospects on campus, Wisconsin bringing in key 2026s for their showdown with Alabama. Purdue's got Notre Dame in town. We'll be talking about all of those games and more. And then, of course, we'll be back again on Monday for the Wiltfong Whip Around. So please hit like and subscribe to get the latest and greatest recruiting news on the On3 Recruits channel.